If you watched my last video, you might remember me saying this. Right, number 3, gear matters, but not as much as you think. So I thought today I'd put that statement to the test, come out camping with the cheapest gear that I've got. We'll have a look and see if there's any obvious differences between a budget setup and some of the more expensive gear that I use. See if I can find anything that we might have to compromise on when you're buying cheaper gear. But most importantly, are we going to have a fun, comfortable and safe night?
Don't go away. We've got quite a lot to talk about.
Oh no, first thing I need though is my head net. Ugh. Can't believe this is only a 20-minute drive away from home. Mrs. M's dropped me off. It only took about an hour to walk up. Kind of hoping that the wind picks up a little bit. I've had to put this waterproof on. The midges just crawl through the Alpha Direct on my red hoodie. I had bites all over last time. I won't make that mistake again. So I do get 1 or 2 complaints about the gear that I use being way too expensive. And I suppose those complaints are warranted. The gear is expensive, but when you've got it, it's very difficult to drop back down to some really budget gear sometimes. Same with anything. If you've got a Rolls Royce, you're going to drive that over your 1984 Austin Maestro. But I've left the Rolls Royce at home. Everything that I brought with me today, well, I'll say everything. I've got a water bottle which is overpriced, but other than that, the actual camping gear is all the cheapest that I've got anyway. So I bought this tent a year or 2 ago. £59 I paid for it. I think it's about 110 now, and that's in the sale. Inflation for you. Camping gear is getting very expensive now. Even budget gear. When you buy a budget tent, the pegs are usually rubbish. And this tent is no exception. These are pretty standard shepherd's hooks. They're not the best, but they'll do a job. So for the £59 that I paid for this tent, brand new, the Bobcat one is a brilliant tent. Its current price of £110, it's still a really good tent. I've seen some videos on YouTube where these Bobcats take a real beating. They're pretty good in the wind. Not sure the exact weight, I think it's around 2 kilo. Single pole, so it's straightforward to pitch. And it is tough as old boots. The pole, it just flexes in the wind, so even if it's, you know, really going for it, it's really impressive for the price tag. You can see straight away that the materials aren't as good quality as the likes of your Hillebergs, but this is 1/10 of the price. Little things like the way they connect inside, it's just a little plastic hook, and unless you do a little modification, you've got to clip them in every time. The pegs are rubbish, but I've had expensive tents that use the same pegs as well. The biggest flaw on this tent for me is the amount of room you've got inside. It is quite small. I don't particularly want to open it because of all the midges around. I will show you in a bit. But that is nothing to do with the price tag. That is purely down to the design of the tent. They've made it small. You know, OEX do 2-person tents for the same sort of money, or maybe, you know, £20–30 more. Does add a little bit to the bulk and the weight, but if you want extra space, you know, something has to give, doesn't it? So this is one of the first backpacks that I got. Had it over 10 years now, I think. It is a Vango Contour 50+10. One of those that the old Duke of Edinburgh used to recommend. You can adjust the torso length. Nice padded hip belts. It's quite comfortable actually. I had a bit of a problem when it came to budget sleeping pad. I was just going to bring my closed cell foam mat, which is a Thermarest Z-Lite Sol. But it turns out that they're 50 quid, which for a foam pad is not really budget, is it? So I've cheated a little bit and been out and bought this Euro Hike camper mat. This is very similar to what I started out with. And you're not going to believe this. This cost me £11.70, I think. Yeah, £11.70. Bargain. Well, if it works, it's a bargain. Self-inflating pads. I find that they never really self-inflate, do they? So you may be able to notice a few problems with this. First of all, it's only torso length. I could have got a longer version of this. I think it was £18, but you know, £6.30, £6.30, isn't it? It's also, there's not much pad in there, is there? It's quite thin. I think it's 2 or 3 centimetres, so it's not going to be the most comfortable. But it will give me enough insulation from the ground, keep me warm tonight anyway. I don't know what it'll be like in the winter months. I don't think I'll be testing that out though. Everything's always a chore when midges are about. Right, I'm just going to put this stuff in here a second. I want to watch this sunset. Apart from the midges, what a stunning evening. Typical. No midges here. Oh yes. Hallelujah. I brought a down sleeping bag with me. It's the first down bag that I ever bought. Euro Hike. Down 500. It cost me £25, £30. I can't remember exactly. It was around that mark. Second hand. Comfort rating -4, allegedly. I'm going to be honest, it's not been really well looked after. It was a bit beat up and battered when I bought it, I think. But it'll keep me warm enough tonight. Doesn't loft up anything special. I think there's more feathers in it than actual down. But it was 25, 30 quid, so I can't complain. The sky is incredible tonight. Look at that. Now, I think that this is the cheapest cook set that I own. I have got, you know, stoves that just cost pence. I've made them with Brewdog cans and things like that, but going for a gas stove that, I've done a video on this before, paid £7 for this. And it'll do a job. The cook pot, I think it's Euro Hike. Yeah, Euro Hike. It's only a cheap anodised aluminium. I can't remember the exact price again. £10, £15 you can get these for. Midges are coming back again. Nothing fancy. Got an igniter though, if it works. I'll try anyway. Here we go. First time. So there's no wind to fight the stove or anything like that, and there's no pressure regulator, but for 3 season use this stove is perfectly fine, and for £7 you can't go wrong. I wouldn't want to rely on it in the winter, but for nights like tonight, perfect. We're boiling already. I forgot to bring the cheapest camping spoon, but Joe had one of these in the car. Just a teaspoon from home. That's all you need. So you might be able to see the first little gripe with this tent. There's not much room inside, is there? Although, it's nothing to do with the price. Like I said, it is just the way they've designed it. I don't know why they make one person tents so small sometimes. These are not budget nowadays. I think it's about £6. Got a bit of room for my feet, my backpack. But it's just this here, it's just a bit too close. That's why I don't use it, to be honest with you. Although a lot of people do like it. Crunchy pasta. Might give it a bit longer. Pillar Trekology. This is probably more expensive than the sleeping bag. I think they're about 15-20 quid. But still relatively cheap when you compare it to Thermarest and the Sea to Summit ones. Oh, I'm really looking forward to spending the night on this sleeping pad. Can already feel like my hips bottoming out. Not really any good for a side sleeper. So the self-inflating pads and closed cell foam mats and stuff, they tend to be cheaper than the insulated air mattresses. It's the one thing that I would not compromise on is my sleeping pad. Being able to have a comfortable night's sleep is paramount, really. Camping is supposed to be fun, and it's no fun if you don't get any sleep at all. And sleeping pad is the single thing that gives you the most comfort. Sleeping bag's all right as well. This will be warm enough. Sometimes when I'm in the tent, I don't even have. I have quilts normally, but half the time I've not got them on. Just kick them off, and if it gets a bit chilly, I pull it over the top of me. Still got some nice colours out there. Still got one or two midges about. Gonna have to zip things up, I think. Been pretty lucky with them overall this year, but horrible creatures. This is ridiculous. Trying to eat in a coffin. I can see the midges just the other side of the mesh. Beginning to think I brought the wrong tent. We might not be thriving, but we're surviving. And I've still got a smile on my face. I've had to come outside for a bit, move my lantern. Lots of midges around the tent. I just can't eat this laid down in there. It's gonna have to be an early night. It's just too small in there to do anything. The porch area is pretty big, so it's not too bad if there's no midges. But with the inner zipped up, there's only room for sleeping. Alright, I'm going to get in here. Wish me luck. Unless anything groundbreaking happens during the night, I'll update you in the morning.
Don't go away. We've got quite a lot to talk about.
Bit of a cloud inversion going off over there. Let's go and get some sunshine. Good morning, campers. So lucky again to wake up to this. So last night, I'll start with a tent. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It didn't really have anything to stand up to. There was no wind or rain. There was a little bit of dew on the fly sheet this morning. But to be honest, I didn't enjoy using it last night. That is nothing to do with the price tag or the quality. It's purely just down to the design. There just wasn't enough room inside. And the midges certainly didn't help with that. But that would have been exactly the same if I'd brought a bivvy bag. So the other night I was out in the refrigerator and I'd have been in a lot more trouble with that when it came to the midges. I've got a Van Gogh Project Hydrogen, which has got even less space inside than this, so it's purely down to size. It wasn't the best experience last night. If I'd have been able to sit comfortably with the door open, or even the inner door open, then there's enough room in there. The inner compartment's only really any good for sleeping in, but if you don't mind that, which I don't, I generally prefer a one-man tent, but with a little bit more room inside. For the price tag, what it is now, if I had to buy again, I would buy something different. I'd probably go for the Van Gogh Nevers, or maybe Nature Hike. Is it Cloud Up? I'd get a two-man version, so there's a little bit more room just to spread out, get dressed, and just be able to hide from the horrible little critters. Now for a bit of bad news. It might have only been £11.70, but this is no good for my old bones. Worst night's sleep I've had in a long time camping. So I can cope with the torso length. I can cope with the insulation. I was plenty warm enough. Just, I'm the sort of person that tosses and turns anyway, from side to side, bit on my back, and that just doesn't, it just doesn't cope with my curves. But I think that that's an age thing, because I used to sleep on something like this perfectly fine, and now I'm probably just have been spoiled a little bit when it comes to mattresses for camping with. This is something that I'm not prepared to compromise on. If you could get something, or if I could get something reasonably priced still, that had at least 5 centimetres of cushioning, an air mattress. But if you're just starting out and you want to try camping and just see how uncomfortable one of these mats are, that goes for closed cell foam roll mats as well. Can't sleep on them either. Don't think you'll be seeing that mat anytime soon. £25 sleeping bag. This was actually great. You can see all the feathers starting to fall out of it. I was really warm in this. I didn't use it as a sleeping bag. I unzipped it fully. And I just use it as a quilt. I much prefer a quilt. It just gives me that freedom to be able to stick an arm out, to be able to just roll over, no problem at all. Occasionally I do get a little cold spot where, if I roll over, my arse sticks out or something like that, but I quickly pull the cover over me and then I'm warm again. So that just goes to show that you don't have to spend hundreds of pounds on quilts and sleeping bags. There's nothing fancy about it. There's no soft, lightweight fabrics or anything. It feels similar sort of fabrics to the Sierra Designs Nitro quilts, which are on the lower scale when it comes to prices for quilts anyway. It's not filled with hydrophobic down. And if you get a cheaper bag, it's not going to be filled with higher quality fill power down or anything like that. But that old sleeping bag was great last night. Gonna have to give a big shout out for secondhand gear. Like I said, that sleeping bag I bought secondhand, and you can save a lot of money And you usually find that a lot of second-hand gear's hardly been used. Make sure to have a good look before you buy that, because you don't want to buy something that is threadbare or anything like that. So second-hand gear for the win. Now we'll talk stoves in a second. In fact, I'm going to boil enough water for 2 coffees. You'll see why in a minute. You reckon? This is my OG plastic coffee cup. My orange Sea to Summit mug, it cost about 15 quid. These are £2 or £3. It's not as good though, is it? But we are budget camping. Nice little handle, look. So this little £7 stove, bang on. No problems with it at all. Don't get me wrong, I said last night, it's not really cold or anything like that. I've got a reasonably full gas canister, doing a job. I've not put it on full blast. It's not as efficient as some of the other stoves I've got, but we're talking, pennies worth of gas. Depends how often you're using them. How reliable do you need something to be? So if you're camping once every 3 months, maybe once a month, the stove will probably be perfectly fine. It is usually the igniter that tends to break first on these things, but they break on more expensive stoves as well. Jet boils or MSR stoves. It's nearly boiling now. Job done. It's only a small cup. I've got water there for the next one. Need a caffeine kick in the morning, don't you? Chocolate sprinkles, sir? Don't mind if I do. Don't have to compromise on everything. These are quite cheap as well. Get them from the coffee machines in the garage. I'll talk about my backpack once I've packed it up, and I'll give you a look around. But, last night proves that although the conditions weren't terrible, you don't need high-end, expensive, lightweight, whatever it is, gear. So if that's the case, why do I use more expensive gear? I'm not the only one. There's lots of people out there. So generally speaking, spending a bit more money on your gear, you're going to get a little bit better quality gear, but that's only up to a point. I've had a few tents that I've paid over 10 times the price that I paid for this one. But I wouldn't say that they are 10 times better. My Hilleberg gunner was around 800 quid. The materials are better quality, it is a stronger tent, there's more room inside, but it actually weighs more than this tent. The pack size is around the same. They both still suffer from condensation. As long as I don't stick a trekking pole through it, my Unna will definitely last a lot longer. These cheaper polyester tents, they do start to break down after a while. The coating, it sort of oxidizes or something. It's called hydrolysis, I think. After a few years, the tape seams will start to delaminate. But it was only 59 quid. And, it's not the end of the world if you've got to replace it in 3 or 4 years. So when I take my more expensive 4-season tents, I feel really secure in them. I'm confident that they're going to withstand the weather conditions. I don't expect the tie-outs to rip off or anything like that, although these ones seem pretty robust. And the Hilleberg tents especially, they've been proven to perform and to last for years and years. At the end of the day, it's your money. And if you're going to use something often enough, and you can justify or don't mind the price tag, then it's entirely up to you. There's nothing wrong with buying the best that you can afford for something that you love doing. So when it comes to a sleeping bag, the more expensive ones tend to have a better quality outer material. It might be water resistant. The down inside is more likely to be ethically sourced. It's going to be of better quality. Usually they've been manufactured to a better standard. You'll get things like better quality zips and extra features such as draft collars. More expensive bags tend to have a better baffling system, so this is stitched all the way through. So you can potentially get cold spots where these are sewn together. A more expensive bag will probably have a baffle system where there is a complete chamber of down or filling, which is harder to manufacture and fill, but it eliminates those cold spots. But obviously that adds to the price a bit. So I think we've already established I do not like this sleeping mat. I've never really got my head around the price of sleeping pads and mats. They just seem like a thin bit of nylon material that you can blow a little bit of air into. You can pay £300 for some of the Thermarest or Nemo sleeping pads now, which is crazy. But I think they realise that it's one of the most important aspects of camping for me is being able to sleep. Now, if you don't have any problem sleeping on a closed cell foam mat or one of those self-inflating mats, you can easily save a few quid when it comes to your bed anyway. Sleeping pads, the one thing that I don't ever want to compromise on again. If I had to start all over from scratch, I would buy more budget options of tent, sleeping bag, stove, but I would spend the extra on a good quality sleeping pad. Not saying everybody should do the same, but for me that is the main priority. Doesn't matter whether we're in the middle of summer or in deep winter, still got to be able to sleep comfortably. You can pick and choose your days for the rest of your gear. You know, if the weather's not suitable for your cheaper tent, then stay at home. But if you want to sleep comfortably, your pad has got to be suitable for every occasion. That's what I think anyway. Although sleeping pads do seem too expensive for what they are. Alright, let's talk a little bit about my stove and my cook set. So if you're a fair weather camper, you only need to spend £7 on a stove. But if you want something with a bit better performance, then just get something like the Soto Windmaster. It will do you, if you just want a gas canister stove anyway, it'll do you pretty much all year round. Maybe in some of the coldest weather, you know, these gas canisters don't perform so well. For those times, I have a cheap alcohol stove, Trangia. You know, I've had that working down at -6 degrees, something like that. It's not the quickest thing to boil in the world, but it works every time. Something like the MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe. It's almost identical to the Soto Windmaster. The only thing I like about it over the Soto is the way it folds. But other than that, I think the Soto outperforms it for £30 or £40 less. And pots. You can pay silly money for pots. I think titanium, or titanium, however you want to say it, is the most overrated type of pot going. Now, I have got several of them, and you know, they boast about how lightweight they are, and they are lightweight. The material itself is, the strength to weight is much better than aluminium and steel. But this cook set, about 15 quid. If you were to buy that in titanium, I've seen some of them, you know, £200 for little cook sets and stuff. You know, a pot like that might be £30, £40, and then same again for the lid version. Do a bit of a Google at some of these titanium canteen bottle sets. It's ridiculous money. And aluminium, or aluminum, it's also really lightweight. This one's anodized, because I know a lot of people, they don't like cooking with aluminium because of the possible health risks. Do some Googling if you want to find out those. Here we go, another half cup of coffee in my £2 mug. Midges are coming back out again. Must be their wake up time. Yeah, titanium is rubbish for cooking in. You know, you can't fry an egg in it. It just burns. It's too thin. You know, you turn your gas on and it's instantly red hot. you can't control the temperature very well. It is mainly for boiling, so if you want something that is really lightweight, just for boiling water, then yeah, get that, but you are paying probably 3 times the price of an aluminium pot, which will do exactly the same thing. So as I was saying earlier, spending a bit more money on your gear tends to mean you're getting a bit better performance or quality, but that's only up to a point. But it gets to the point where you can pay 200, 300, 400 pounds just to save 200 grams on something, because it's using space age materials or something like that. Now for the average person that is walking maybe 100 miles for the West Highland Way, now, I don't think you're going to notice that 200 grams difference. So you can save a couple of 100 grams here, 100 grams there, and overall, if you're starting off with really heavy stuff, then you can shave a lot of weight off. But it gets to a point where you get decent gear, you start saving, it is literally just a few 100 grams. And unless you are a real athlete, most of us are carrying a few extra pounds just around our midsection. So we'd be better off saving a few quid on food, shaving a few 100 grams off our belly, and keeping the tent we've already got. What a lovely day. So it eventually gets to that point where the performance gains aren't justified by the price gains. As I said, you can end up paying hundreds of pounds more just to save a couple 100 grams, or to have a tiny incremental upgrade. So as consumers, we've got to work out where we get the best bang for our buck. Spending an extra £35 to get the Soto Windmaster seems like a good upgrade for me, but spending an extra £800 or £900 to get a top-end Hilleberg or Terra Nova tent might seem like a waste of money to you. Now, I'm going to get stuff packed away and we'll talk about the backpack on the way down. I'll have a little chat about the backpack and then I'll give you my final verdict on last night's camp with budget gear. I can't remember the exact price that I paid for this backpack. It was around the 25 quid mark. And I bought it second hand. I did have to do a little bit of a repair, just some stitching on the shoulder strap up here. But for that kind of money, it's about 10 years old now. You really can't go wrong. So the main compartment's 50 litres and then there's 10 litres for the top pocket, and then there's the bottle pockets, which I don't like so much, and that little back pocket for putting your waterproof jacket in. I really like the adjustable torso length. You can really dial it in so the pack fits you really well. I've got some really expensive packs that haven't got the adjustable torso length. Some are actually made specifically for my torso measurement, but then if you've ever tried measuring your own torso, it's quite difficult. So getting things really dialed in, it's nice to be able to the option to adjust things. And you can lend your pack to somebody else and then they just alter it to suit them as well. I'm not a fan of the external pockets on it though. They've not really used any bungee as such, and the bottle pockets are just really tight. You struggle to get a Nalgene bottle in there. Same goes for the back pocket as well. I like the bungee system where you can just keep ramming it in, and then the bungee just pulls things tight. I never really use the little sleeping bag compartment at the bottom. I just shove everything into the bottom. But overall, the pack is really comfortable. And you can buy similar sort of packs now for around £60, something like that. I have seen packs that are similar in design for as little as £25. They're a little bit heavier than the more premium packs, and they're not waterproof, but they do come with a waterproof cover. Whereas you can spend £200 plus on an Osprey pack, and then you've got to buy a separate cover, which might be another 30 or 40 quid. Unless your backpack is waterproof itself, a cover should be provided. But that's another way for some of the brands just to squeeze a little bit more out of you. So what did I think to last night's budget camping gear? So overall, I've really enjoyed it. Cracking sunset and sunrise again this morning. I have been blessed lately with camping conditions, although I am looking at the weather forecast and trying to choose some of the better occasions to capture these moments. I really missed having a comfortable sleeping pad though. As I said earlier, even if I'm on a budget and I'm just starting out, sleeping pad is the one thing that I would splash out a little bit more cash on just to make sure I was comfortable. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the tent, but because there were midges about, I would have liked a little bit of extra space inside. So yeah, if I'm going budget, I'm going 2-man tent, and you can pick those up in a similar sort of quality for around 100 quid. I've had the sleeping bag and this backpack for 10 years plus, and I bought them secondhand. So there's a lot to be said about saving some money and buying used gear. It's actually a really good way of trying out new bits of gear. If you find out that it's not for you, you can always sell it on and usually get what you paid for it. So to put things into perspective, if there were no midges and I had a comfortable sleeping pad, that would have been as good a night as any. Can't really notice any difference with what's on my back, and when like that the weather's pretty decent, notice no difference when it came to tent, stove, sleeping bag. Let me know what your thoughts are when it comes to budget gear and how you think it compares to more expensive offerings. I have got another 20 bits of wild camping advice. If you want to find out those, then just click on this video here, or I will link it in the description below.